I recently asked myself, when was the last time I did an episode of favorite song each okay. Yeah, it's been a minute. So let's fix that. In this episode of favorite song each album, I'll be going over the discography of Black Sabbath. So for those who don't recall, in this series, I go through a band's entire studio catalog and I name my favorite song. And as a bonus, I give an honorable mention. And the honorable mention could be either my second favorite song or a song I feel doesn't get much attention that I would like to shed light on. So of course, Black Sabbath, one of the most influential bands of the 1970s, of course the godfathers of what we call heavy metal. And I've been in a huge Black Sabbath kick recently because I've been doing a series on Nick's channel, Townsend 505. We've just recently finished the entire studio albums, and so might as well bring back this old series just for fun. And hopefully I'll do more of these in the future because there's quite a lot I still need to do. And of course, as always, this is all just my opinion. In the comments below, let me know your thoughts on my picks, but also let me know your favorite song on each album. If you want to do the whole discography, go for it. If not, then just the albums that you know, also fine. But this is all just for fun. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. We will start with the debut from 1970, and it's kind of a tough one because there's two versions of this album. There's the UK version and then there's the US version, where they took the UK version and they kind of combined a lot of songs to make one piece. Like here, there's only 5 tracks, but I'm pretty sure in the UK, I can't remember how many, but I know it's a lot more. So just to make it easy, I'm going to use the UK version, just to make things easier. So for my favorite song on the debut, I'm going to go with NIB. I mean, you have that killer bass intro from Geezer Butler. I feel like he's a very underrated bass player. And once you get into the main song, you get this very heavy guitar riff, and Ozzy sounds terrific as usual. And again, lyrically, it's very, very interesting with the whole, the devil or Lucifer trying to find love. Very intriguing topic, but it's a terrific song. Definitely one of my favorites of this early period of theirs. And for an honorable mention, and I do have it listed down there, I'm actually going to go with Wicked World. That's a pretty underrated song. I'm pretty sure Wicked World was only on the US, where on the UK it had Evil Woman. So again, it's very odd with these different versions, but anyhow, regardless, so Wicked World is going to be my honorable mention. I just think it's a very catchy song, really. It has a very good bluesy guitar riff, and I really do enjoy Ozzy's vocals, and it just has a good driving rhythm to it that I really enjoy. So there you go. Those are my 2 picks. Again, I kind of flip-flop between both versions, even though I said I was going to do the UK. Whatever. We'll roll with it for now. So there you go. Sticking to the same year, we have Paranoid. Of course, a very iconic album in their discography, has some of their biggest hits on here. But what are my favorite songs on it? Well, for my favorite song, it might shock people, but I'm going to go with Fairies Wear Boots, the closing song. And again, you have that great guitar riff by Tony. I just love the sound of it. And once it really kicks in with the drums, it's just heavy and just a very good way to close out the album. And for an honorable mention, I will mention a hit. Honorable mention is going to be Iron Man. I mean, of course, that's a typical choice. I mean, it's an iconic riff. Many people reference it. I know the movie Iron Man used it. It's just a very killer song, and the lyrics are pretty cool too, with the whole prophecy sort of thing, which is very fascinating. But yeah, there you go. Those are the 2 songs from Paranoid. Then following Paranoid, we have Masters of Reality from 1971. Alright, so for my favorite song, I'm going to go with another closing song, and that is going to be Into the Void. Again, I know in this particular album they were really, particularly Tony and Geezer were really playing around with different tunings to make it sound darker and heavier, and Into the Void is just the pinnacle of that. It's just a very really good riff, and it just has this very dark, menacing vibe to it, which kind of fits into the song in a sense. But yeah, and of course Ozzy's vocals and the drumming is just absolutely top notch. So that's going to be my favorite song. And then from the honorable mention, I will go for another kind of typical choice, and that's going to be Children of the Grave. I've actually heard the guitar riff before I actually knew the song, because there was a show called the Looney Tunes Show, which they would play songs before commercial breaks, and one of the songs was called Daffy Duck the Wizard, and they pretty much copied the exact riff.
Under the gaze of the necromancer, a silver staircase starts to rise.
That's just a little side tangent. I mean, the riff itself is just absolutely spectacular. That's just one of my favorite parts of the song. And again, just has a good driving rhythm to it that I just had to mention. So those are the two picks for Master of Reality. From 1972, we have Volume 4. And for my favorite song on here, I know, it's for 3 in a row so far, and my favorite song is the closing track, and that is going to be Under the Sun. I mean, man, it has a very nice intro, kind of hooks you in, but then once the song really gets into it, it's just absolutely spectacular and just a killer song. I mean, again, the riff just has a very interesting tone that I just absolutely adore, and again, Ozzy's vocals just absolutely killer, and just a very great closing track. So very underrated. I don't hear many people talk about it, but definitely a very good hidden gem. And for the honorable mention, I'm going to go with Supernaut, and that's kind of the song that people seem to know on this album. It's pretty iconic. Well, not one of their big hits, but definitely very well known, I would say. And again, another great guitar riff from Tony, and yeah, it's just a very great heavy rock song, and sometimes that's all I gotta say. So there you have it. And now we have one of my favorites from 1973. We have Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and my favorite song on here is going to be the second track, which is A National Acrobat. And the vibe of this song is just absolutely infectious. I just love the vibe. It just has this very interesting tone I can't really describe. You just have to hear it to hear it for yourself, because again, it just has this slow kind of, I wouldn't say somber, but it definitely has a different tone than everything they did previously, and in this sense, maybe even after. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but to me it is. And yeah, again, the lyrics are very interesting, very abstract in a sense. It has I know it has a meaning, but it's kind of one of the more abstract ideas, but very cool nonetheless. Again, another very underrated track, I feel. Not many people talk about it, but I love it. And it's one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs in general. As with my honorable mention, and that's going to be the title track, which also starts the album. And not only do you have a killer riff from Tony, but it has one of my favorite Ozzy Osbourne vocal on the Black Sabbath album. I mean, it has some of his highest singing he's done, and to me it sounds pretty cool. I mean, Ozzy always had that very unique vocal style, and it really comes to fruition on the title track. And yeah, it's also one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs, so there we go. I had to mention it, of course, but yeah, love this album, by the way. And now we move on to Sabotage from 1975. And I'm going to be honest, my two picks are not going to be too out of the ordinary. I mean, usually these two songs are seen as the big highlights from the album. So again, not going to be going against the grain, shall we say. So my favorite song is going to be Symptom of the Universe. I mean, that riff alone is just so awesome that I had to make it as my favorite. And it just has the different passages and moments in that track. Definitely one of my favorites. And then for the honorable mention is going to be the long song Megalomania. And yeah, it just has so many different parts to it that I just dig a lot. And yeah, I just had to throw it in here. So again, as I said multiple times, nothing new, but it's definitely the highlights for me. Moving along to Technical Ecstasy from 1976. Not one of my all-time favorite albums by them, but there are some good songs. And my favorite song on here is actually the first song, and that is Backstreet Kids. Again, a very high energy track to start the album, and definitely puts you in a good mood. and it has a very driving rhythm to it. And for the honorable mention, I have the final song, which is Dirty Woman, or Dirty Women, as how it says back in the back. Yeah, pretty good closing track. Again, not the heaviest song by them, but definitely is a very good rock song. Again, not too much to say about it, but it's just a very nice song in general. Good riff, the playing's great. There you go. Okay, now we have Never Say Die from 1978. Yeah, not one of my favorites, not by a long shot, but you know, I still found a couple songs I did like. By far the best song on here is Never Say Die, the title track. I mean, definitely the most memorable song on here, and definitely sets it on a promising note. I'm not saying this album is terrible. I'm just saying that it's definitely one of the weaker ones in my opinion. But yeah, the first song definitely a good highlight. In terms of a honorable mention, I'm gonna go with Shockwave. Again, one of the more heavier tracks on the album. Again, it's not one of my top tier Black Sabbath tracks, but compared to other songs on here, this is one that definitely has that sound that I like in Black Sabbath. You know, this album has a lot more jazz influence, which I don't mind jazz, but I think they leaned a bit too heavy on certain parts. But regardless, pretty good songs here for the most part, but there are some duds in there. But there you have it. Those are my two picks from Never Say Die. Alright, now we get into the Dio years. Of course, we have Heaven and Hell, and one of my favorite albums here. And so picking a song was actually a little tough, but I'm pretty happy with my two picks. So my favorite song is not going to be too much of a shock to some people, but I gotta go with the title track. I love the title track. Another one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs. I just love the guitar riff and Geezer's bass, that driving riff he does, that doom 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 doom. It's simple but effective, and of course Ronnie's vocals just absolutely phenomenal. One of my favorite Ronnie vocals ever, and just sells it. And once it picks up near the end, it's just a great climax. So absolutely adore Heaven and Hell, the song. And for the honorable mention, I'm going to go with Die Young, and kind of a deeper cut. I don't hear too many people talk about it, but again, another great heavy song, but I really love when they slow down a bit and it kind of quiets down and you hear Ronnie saying Die Young. I just love the feel of that during that whole section. But yeah, it was tough picking two songs to share, but those are the two I came down to. But top to bottom, this is a terrific album. Might be a perfect album, I must say, but who knows. But that's my two picks from that album. And following that, we have Mob Rules from 1981. Again, kind of tough picking two favorite songs here, but yeah, I came to the conclusion, and these two songs aren't, you know, not too out of the ordinary. But yeah, my favorite song is going to be Sign of the Southern Cross. That's the big epic song on here, and yeah, it's an epic track. Just the sheer heaviness, the power of it, just especially the main riff. It just has a very aggressive feel, and yeah, I just love the mood to it. But yeah, spectacular stuff there. And for the honorable mention, I'm gonna go with the title track, The Mob Rules. That is actually the first song I heard from the Dio era. Yeah, it's just a good, memorable track, very memorable riff, very catchy, and of course Ronnie's vocals is great, and just a driving rhythm. Yeah, not much to say about it, but it's just one of my favorites. So there you have it. Those are the two songs from The Mob Rules. Okay, so now we get to the album that is pretty controversial. We have Born Again, of course, the only album with Ian Gillan on lead vocals. And I'm gonna say, I love this album. You know, I get the complaints people have with this one, but they never bothered me. And of course, I'm a huge Ian Gillan fan, so there you go. So, favorite song on here is going to be Hotline. Very good one. I just love the energy of it. And of course, Ian is shrieking like he normally does, and it's awesome. It's badass. I love it. And yeah, it's just, you know, lyrically, it's not so much of a Black Sabbath song, but it's still awesome. I don't care. So that's my favorite song, and for the honorable mention, I'm gonna go with the first song I heard from this album. That is Zero the Hero. Of course, when you first hear it, it kind of starts abruptly because the previous track kind of blended into it. But again, Tony's guitar work on that one just has a much different feel to it, and it just has a different vibe that I really dig. Again, it has a real dark sound to it, and then you hear those. I can't, like, those boom, like, I can't tell if that's a keyboard or some kind of organ that they struck, but at certain points it just like just kind of shocks you a little bit. Of course, again, Ian's vocals very cool as well. So yeah, I mean, I know some people don't like this album, but I don't care. I love it, and those are my two favorite songs off it. Up next, we have another pretty controversial album. We have Seventh Star from 1986. Okay, so the only album with Glenn Hughes on vocals, and of course we all know the story. This was supposed to be a Tony Iommi solo album, but got turned into a Black Sabbath album. Hence, it's Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. So my favorite song on here is the title track. You know, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's just a straightforward, very good hard rock number. Not too heavy, but you know, the drums really keep the groove in there. You have Eric Singer, who is a very good drummer in his own right, and you know, Glenn, again, great vocalist. Of course, I liked him in Deep Purple, and he sounds great here still, despite his cocaine habit at the time. But yeah, again, not a whole lot to say about it, but it's just pretty good. And then for the album mention, I'm gonna go with In for the Kill, the first song. Very good way to open the album. Just comes in blazing. Again, not too heavy, definitely more on the hard rock side than heavy metal in my opinion, but again, Glenn's vocals really shine, and you know, the playing from the band is pretty good too. So again, nothing too amazing, but still, I like it. So there you go. And now we head over to the sometimes forgotten Tony Martin era. Starting off, we have The Eternal Idol from 1987. And there are some good songs here, and my favorite song is called Hard Life to Love. That was surprisingly very hard to say. You won't believe how many takes it took for me to say that. But yeah, just a good, very high energy track. Great drumming, and Tony Martin's vocals just really sell it, and good guitar riff from Tony. Again, nothing amazing, but really good. And my honorable mention is going to be the first song I heard from this era, and that is The Shining, which, you know, starts the album. And yeah, really good introduction for Tony Martin. Again, really good vocal. The guitar playing is pretty good. I like the bridge section where they kind of bring it down a bit before it builds back into the main riff. Again, very strong stuff here. So that's starting off strong with the Tony Martin era. And now we have Headless Cross from '89. I'm going to say right here, I'm not going to say where it would, but it's definitely very high in my album ranking. But yeah, very underrated album. And my favorite song on here is going to be the epic track When Death Calls. And yeah, it has this very menacing, dark feel to it. And Tony Martin's vocals just absolutely spectacular. But my favorite part, and this is where my bias is going to come in, because of course you have, you know, there's two guitar solos, but one of the solos was done by the legendary Brian May of Queen, which, you know, I said that, and so, you know, I said that, so that kind of tells you why it's my favorite, because again, Brian's guitar solo on the track is just so amazing. And yeah, just such a great track, very underrated, and one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs because of that. So there you go. So that's my favorite song, and for the honorable mention, I will go with the title track, you know, the opening song. Very memorable. I think it's a very catchy chorus, and I really love that it really showcases Tony Martin's vocals, especially his more high register, especially when you hear him scream out the title of the song. I just think it's so epic. Again, very underrated singer. So there you go, my two favorites from Headless Cross. Now we have Tear from 1990. So now we're in the 90s now, and you know, pretty strong album. Favorite song, going to be the opening song. I'm probably going to butcher it, but Anu Mundi. So again, great guitar riff. I think the guitar is probably my favorite part of the song. You know, Tony Martin still sounds good, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Nothing too amazing, but, you know, still very good way to open the album. For the honorable mention, I'm going to go with Valhalla. And probably the most anthemic song on here. I can definitely picture people, you know, chanting the chorus, you know, Valhalla, something like that. You know, very catchy, very memorable. Again, not top tier Black Sabbath, but you know, for what it is, I enjoy it. So there you go, 2 picks from tier. Taking a short break from the Tony Martin era, we have Dehumanizer, which has the return of Ronnie James Dio on vocals briefly. So favorite song on here is going to be I. Again, love I. Really good riff, very good vocals from Ronnie, even at this point, still sounds amazing. Even to the end, he still sounded amazing. But yeah, I is probably the biggest standout, very heavy, good drumming from Vinny Appice, and the whole rest of the band really are really firing on this particular track here. So, and I love the message too, you know, I as in you know, having confidence, something on that line, which, you know, I dig. So that's great. And then my honorable mention is going to be Time Machine. Not one of the most known songs on this album, I don't think, but I've always enjoyed it. Again, pretty straightforward, but I just like the riff. And, you know, I think one of my favorite Ronnie vocals here. And yeah, again, straightforward, to the point, and that's all you need sometimes. So those are the 2 tracks from Dehumanizer. And now we have Cross Purposes from 1994. So now Ronnie's out, Tony Martin's back in. So again, kind of confusing, but still some good songs here. Again, not one of their strongest albums, but there's some good stuff, like I said. Favorite song, I'm not sure if people are going to give me crap for it, but my favorite song is actually going to be The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And you know, people don't really are a fan of the Tony Martin era because, you know, there's more keyboards on them, and some people say it's a bit too polished. Again, that's never been my issue with them, but that's what I hear sometimes. And you know, this song does have the keyboards, but hey, I like the keyboard. I like the keyboard melody on here. You know, maybe some people might think it's cheesy, but again, I'm a sucker for that sound, so it doesn't bother me, and I actually really enjoy it. And when it does rock out, it's just very great. And you know, kind of a sad lyrically, because it does deal with nurses who kill infants, which is not a good one. And of course, the song makes it very clear they are against that. But yeah, I really enjoy that song. And then for the honorable mention, I have Cross of Thorns, which is the 2nd track. Good heavy number, you know, especially during this point in the band's history. Definitely a very strong song. Again, not a whole lot to say, but you know, it's just one of the songs I enjoyed the most. I just like the vibe to it, I guess. So there you go. Okay, let's talk about Forbidden. Alright, I'm gonna be upfront. This is by far my least favorite Black Sabbath album. So there's a lot of songs I didn't like, but there are some songs I did, you know, liked. My favorite song is actually going to be the title track. The title track definitely has the most catchy choruses and one of the more catchier riffs on here. And you know, it does have a good rhythm to it, and Tony Martin sounds pretty good on here, which is saying, because I will say, for the most part on this particular album, Tony does not sound that great on the vocal departments, unfortunately. But on the title track, he really sounds like himself again, which I really enjoy. And then for my honorable mention, I'm going to go with Kiss of Death, which is the closing song, which is ironic because my favorite songs are the final songs on the album. I don't know what that means. But yeah, Kiss of Death, I guess is kind of the epic on the album. You know, good mood, good atmosphere to it, and definitely the most heaviest song on the album, I will say. But yeah, again, there wasn't a whole lot to choose from, but you know, those 2 songs I'd say are pretty listenable. I would say they're worth checking out if you're curious. But other than that, yeah, I don't see myself going back to this album anytime soon. So right here we have The Devil You Know from Heaven and Hell. Now, for people who are unaware, this is technically not Black Sabbath, although it does have Ronnie James Dio, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Vinny Appice all on here. So it's Black Sabbath, but it's not. So again, I'm not 100% sure why that was the case. I heard many theories, but I'm not going to get into them in this video. So regardless, so I'm including it because, you know, it does have the Mob Rules lineup and the Dehumanizer lineup if you include that as well. So I'm including it anyway, so deal with it. So favorite song, Rock and Roll Angel. Again, very good, heavy track. Again, Ronnie's vocals sound good. Definitely one of the more memorable songs on the album. I will say the only drawback to this album, I think some of the songs sound a bit samey, but Rock and Roll Angel really stands out in my opinion, and so therefore it's my favorite. And then for the second track, I have Follow the Tears. Kind of the same reasons I said in the last track. Again, very good, stands out just a little bit more, and of course the band sound really nice. So I kind of played it it's kind of a quick little segment here, but again, just want to throw this out there pretty quickly. I will say it's definitely worth a listen if you have not heard this, if you're a Black Sabbath fan. So yeah, it's worth checking out. And closing this off, we have the final Black Sabbath album. We have 13 from 2013. Of course, the return of Ozzy Osbourne in the band. Of course, there's no Bill Ward, which is kind of sad, but you still have Tony and Geezer, so close. We have 75% there. But, you know, regardless. Favorite song? I'm gonna go with the final track, which is Dear Father. Really good song to go out with, I will say. And I really do think the lyrics are pretty good from Geezer. You know, the whole abuse that goes on in some churches, which, of course, if you didn't know, Geezer Butler is a devout Christian. So, of course, he was you can hear the anger about it. And kind of really showcasing, like, this is a terrible thing. So I respect it on that level. But the song itself is really good. Really good guitar playing. Ozzy sounds pretty good for the most part on the track. And, you know, it does do a little callback to the first song on the debut, you know, with the church bells in the rain. Kind of a cute little thing, I must say. But, you know, saying cute and Black Sabbath together, you know, it's kind of a weird thing, but I don't know, it's kind of a cute little thing they did at the end to kind of call back to the first album. So I don't know. Anyhow, so for the honorable mention, I'm gonna go with probably the big song on here, and that is God Is Dead, ? Which won them a Grammy for Best Metal Vocal Performance, I think, or Best Metal Song with Vocals. I forgot which one that was. But yeah, just a really good, kind of a more doomy, heavy track. One of the slower songs, but for me it didn't really bug me. And, you know, Ozzy again sounds pretty good, definitely fits the overall tone the song's going for. And yeah, I just really dug it. And there you have it. Those are my favorite songs on every Black Sabbath studio album. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and if you did, please give this video a like, subscribe if you are new. And like I said in the beginning, comment below your thoughts on my picks, but also let me know what are your favorite songs on each Black Sabbath studio album. If you want to do the whole catalog or a select few, that's fine as well. I look forward to seeing what your opinions are. Of course, if you want to see more episodes of favorite song each album, again, comment that below as well. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye for now.